Hi friends, welcome to my July and August wrap up. I'm very excited to do this video because this video and the last wrap up video of mine, maybe even the last two, I can't quite remember, but both of them have been wrap ups of 2 months because I've not been reading that much or as much as I would like to, so I feel like individual month videos have just felt pointless because I don't feel like there's enough to talk about. So I've been doing kind of 2-month increments. Maybe that will change in the future, hopefully it will, but I'm excited because I have now 2 months worth of books to talk about and I'm very excited to get into it. So let's just get started. It is so hot in California, like I swear, like the end of August every year I've been here, there's like a heat wave and it's like literally over 100 degrees outside today, so doing great. And you might be thinking, you're not outside. Yeah, well, I do have air conditioning, however, it is really loud, so when I'm filming I turn it off, so don't mind me being sweaty and gross. Okay, so let's start with July. So the first book I read in July was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And you know, she just did not disappoint. She did not let me down. That book was such a joy to get through. She does such a good job of writing things like historical sort of fiction about famous people. So in Daisy Jones and the Six, we're following Daisy and we're also following this band called the Six, and then you follow them separately and then when they end up coming together and then eventually splitting up. And it was just such like an intimate experience, especially because the whole book is told throughout this like interview perspective, and I just really enjoyed it. I feel like she captured what I imagine it would have been like to be in that position, to be in a band like that in the 70s. And I think it's cool how she approached it also with like having Daisy be this central character, but also having like a whole band, because Daisy was like this total it girl, but you also got to see her interact and become a part of this band and also be a real person and not just be glamorized for how she looks and all of that. It also did have like a bit of romance in it, which I actually found really endearing and interesting, just because, you know, it's following these songwriters kind of falling in love, which was interesting because they also didn't like each other at the same time. It reminds me a lot of like when I was reading Black Swans by Eve Babbitt. Like Eve Babbitt, as far as I know, wasn't in the music scene necessarily, but because she was in this scene of Hollywood and like kind of old Hollywood, it just gave that energy. Like Daisy even stayed in the same place that Eve Babbitt would always stay, the Chateau Marmont, so it just really gave similar energy there. So yeah, I loved it. It was really fun, really good. I loved following around a band. Like it's kind of obvious that the story is about that they're gonna get together and fall apart at the end, so I don't really think that's a spoiler, but like the fact that they do fall apart eventually, like it's saddening, like it's truly upsetting. So I just think it was so well written and I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. I rounded it down to 4 on Goodreads. I just realized my starlights aren't on. I'm gonna put those on. Cute, that looks cute. I really wish I had like a different background for y'all because I know these pink walls can be a little intense. I don't really mind it just because it's like whatever, like what am I gonna do? Paint the walls? No, I'm not doing that. Nor am I allowed, but I know it's a lot and I wish I kind of had a different background, but this is what I got going for me. Anyway, the next thing I read was Spy Family, the first volume, which I was so excited about. I have been wanting to read Spy Family for a really long time and I always like think about buying it and then I never did. And then finally I bought the first 2 copies. I was so excited. I read the first one, loved it, gave it 5 stars. Ugh, it was so good. The hype is real, like it just is. Okay, so if you don't know what Spy Family is about, real quick, it's basically following this guy who's a spy, and his mission is to get close to this other man, and to get close to him he needs to basically infiltrate a school. So in order to infiltrate a school he needs to have a kid and a wife. So now his mission is to get a kid and a wife. So he adopts a kid, Anya, and he, by some crazy circumstances, finds a wife. Or actually it is kind of following this like fake dating trope, because they're both kind of doing it for each other. They kind of made a deal with one another, but they do kind of, you know, fall into being a family.
Hi everyone, editing Alexa here. I'm just here to pop in because I'm realizing just now that I completely neglected to explain the best part of the plot of Spy Family, which is the fact that the wife, Yor, is an assassin and the daughter, Anya, is a telepath. And that's why the story is so good, because it follows a spy, an assassin, and a telepath, and they're all keeping the secret from one another. I know, right? Okay, but I forgot, I guess. So, I'm telling you now.
And it's just so good. It's so adorable. It's so fun. Anya is just so cute. I literally love her. Like, I have an emotional attachment to her, truly. And so I did read the second one afterwards, which again I really liked, and I really want to get all of the other ones. I have not gone around to getting the rest of them, but I did start watching the show, and the show is really good. And I literally stopped myself because it started going into the third one, which I wasn't familiar with. And I'm like so upset because it started getting really interesting, but I stopped myself. So yeah, I gave both of them 5 stars. It was so good. I loved it. The next book I read in July was Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This is actually the second Sally Rooney book I've read. The first one I read was Normal People. I actually do feel like I liked Conversations with Friends better. I feel like Sally Rooney, for me, is the type of writer who, when I'm reading her books, I'm like very inspired to write myself, because her writing style is so simplistic while also being very profound at the same time. I feel like because she really just details these ordinary like interactions with people, like the book is literally called Conversations with Friends, like, you know, it's a very normal thing to occur in life, but the way she approaches it, it makes it very digestible for everyone, I think, but it also really highlights the like complicatedness of life. Especially I feel like the way she navigates relationships in her books, because they're so complicated and unconventional and just kind of weird, which I love. I just find it so fascinating. I feel like it really shows this side and perspective of people and humanity and conversations and communication and relationships in a way we sometimes don't want to look at them. And so she kind of brings that out. Like, she's, you know, highlighting the fact that, you know, sometimes relationships are weird or fucked up, or both of the people are unhealthy in it. And, you know, like sometimes it's just hard and complicated and not simply fine and healthy and normal and easy. So it basically follows like 4 central main characters, and this was another thing that I found really interesting and inspiring, was the setup of her characters and this universe, because it follows Frances and Bobby, who are 2 best friends, and the both of them have been like best friends since high school. They dated, and then they broke up, but they're still best friends, like still best friends, live together, besties, right? Which already is a really like unaverage situation. And Bobby has been like her only best friend ever, and she's fine with that. Like Frances, the main character that you're following, fine with that. And then you follow this older couple that Bobby and Frances, the girls, meet, and their names are Nick and Melissa. That right? Melissa? I think Melissa. Anyway, so Bobby is like, ooh, I kind of like Melissa. And then Frances is like, ooh, I kind of like Nick. Bobby communicates that more to Frances, but Frances kind of like keeps her feelings in about Nick. And it's also cool because, you know, Bobby is gay and Francis is bi, so you have two queer main characters. Actually, I guess three, because Melissa also is bi, yeah. And so then you watch as this relationship between the four of them unravel, and it focuses more heavily on Francis and Nick, but it also really explores Francis and Bobby's relationship. And it was just so good. I really enjoyed just like the exploration and like the pulling back of the relationship between all of them. It was so interesting. And it was cool because at the same time they were like, you know, this sort of foursome, these two couples of people in different ways. And at points they would have like other people around the four of them. And so you still got to see like how they would connect, but around like larger groups of people. Sally Rooney is definitely a really unique author in my eyes because it's very authentic when it comes to her. Like, that's the best word I can think of. It's just so real that it's refreshing, but also like ugly. And I also really love how she does like endings, because they're not necessarily open endings, but they're endings that are not traditional. So I really liked Conversations with Friends. Big fan. I gave it 4 stars. Okay, the next 3 books I read were romance books. I actually vlogged them earlier this month, and the first book I read in August was Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I was really highly anticipating Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and it did not let me down at all. I loved this book. I would totally reread it. It follows Delilah, who's a photographer who has an estranged relationship with her family. Her mom died when she was younger, and then her dad got remarried, and then her dad died, and she never had a good relationship with her stepmother or her stepmother's daughter. So her and her stepsister have also this estranged relationship. And her stepsister invites her to her wedding and also to photograph her wedding, because, like I said, photographer, right? And so she goes there to like spend like a 2-week period doing all kinds of wedding stuff. And at first she's very unserious about the situation, like she's nervous, but she's coping with it by like not caring. So then when she's there, she basically runs into her stepsister's friends. So when they were in high school, her stepsister had these 2 best friends, still does, and she runs into one of them, but the way in which she runs into them is interesting, because one of them actually comes up to her and hits on her in a bar, not knowing it was her because she looks so different from the last time she saw her. And so then when she realizes, and they have to do all this wedding stuff together, it's like very awkward, because it's like, you know, I thought you were cute enough to hit on, but didn't know you were my friend's sister. But they do know each other from when they were younger, so they have this connection. And also the love interest, Claire, has a daughter who's like 10 years old, so that gives it a whole another interesting element to it. And I just really liked it. I thought it was so good. I thought the tension between them was so great, and I really liked both of them separately, so when they came together, loved it so much. I also liked that part of it was like surrounded by this secrecy, because the wedding was happening and they didn't want to let her stepsister know and like, you know, be a downer. And also like both of them really liked each other, but there's this element of not wanting to commit that both of them had that like allowed it to be less stressful, because they both weren't really disappointed in one or the other. They understood each other, and truthfully there was really not much of a miscommunication trope, which is my least favorite thing in romance books, so I was very happy about that. And it was great. I just couldn't give it any more praise, to be honest. I gave it 5 stars. Okay, truthfully I gave it 4.5 stars, but I rounded it up to 5 stars on Goodreads. So I just realized I actually have the books right here, and I was talking about this without holding it. Here it is. I tapped it a lot, as you can see. That's how you know it was loved. The next book I read was She Gets the Girl, and I really liked this book. It was good. This follows Molly and Alex as they're both going into college, their first year of college. They're very different people, very opposite personalities. Alex is very outgoing and Molly is very shy and introverted. So it kind of just follows as like Alex is trying to get Molly to get the girl, which is just this girl that they kind of are like mutually friendly with. Molly knows her from high school, but anyway, all of them know each other, and Alex is trying to help them get together, but instead they fall for each other. Wow, who would have thunk? It was really cute, honestly. Like, I don't have much to say about this because it was very like, it was well written, it was good. I wasn't like very obsessed with the characters or the plot or anything, but I still found it really like well-rounded and really fun and really sweet and cute and like wholesome. It was also cute because the trope in this book is like enemies to friends to lovers, which I feel like I've never read about. So this was fun. I had a good time. I gave this 4 stars. The next thing I read in August was August Alice. This was okay. It was basically about like these 2 girls who have a mutual best friend and they don't like each other. Now going into this, I saw pretty bad reviews, so I kind of went into it thinking I might not like it because of that. But I also really just didn't like the fact that I didn't believe why they didn't like each other. Like, I didn't believe the enemies thing, which I feel like ruins enemies to lovers for me. Or like if their reasoning doesn't feel valid or justified to me, it's just hard for me to care or believe it. But even though that they know each other in real life, online they they are close online. Like, they write fan fiction together, or no, one of them writes fan fiction and one of them draws the comics for the fan fiction. So they collaborate on this project online together, and they don't know it's each other, obviously, and they love each other online. Like, they openly have crushes on one another online. And so you just basically follow the journey of like that happening, and then them trying to meet in person, and then finding out that it's each other. I just didn't buy it. That's the thing. Like, I just didn't buy it at all. I didn't believe when they suddenly went from enemies to lovers. I didn't believe it. It was too fast. It just didn't sink in for me. But I don't feel like the writing was bad or that the storyline was necessarily bad. Like, it took me like 2 days to read this. It was really easy to read, so I don't feel like it was complete shit. Like, let me make that clear. But I just didn't really jive with much of it, and I didn't really like either character. I wasn't really rooting for them, so it was fine. I ended up giving this 2.5 stars. I rounded it up to 3. Okay, and hallelujah, we're almost done. You know, I love being here with y'all, but I need air conditioning. I am literally melting, okay? It's not cute. It's disgusting. Oh my god, I lied. I'm lying. Okay, I just realized I'm lying, and I read more than... Anyway, the next book I read was The Nobodies. I have controversial opinions on this as well. So I picked this up without ever having... I can't speak. So I picked this up without ever... Why can't I say words? So I picked this up, even though I've never seen this before. I just thought the premise sounded really cool because it's about 2 best friends who, when they touch foreheads, can swap bodies. And part of the synopsis was that like one of them feels really confident in the other person's body, right? Honestly though, this book was such a flop for me. It's so disappointing. I feel like this reads a lot like a literary fiction, but a literary fiction that's boring. It's boring, even though like the premise is so interesting. So it follows these 2 girls who are best friends, and in the beginning of the book they're actually like reuniting in their adulthood because they split up. Like, hold on. Anyway, they they reunite in their adulthood. You don't really know why they stopped being friends, but they reunite, and then you kind of follow them as adults, and then it flash forwards, or no, it flashes backwards to them as children, which those were honestly, I feel like, the best chapters to me. It really explored like how they started swapping and what that was like as children, and what that was like to like reminiscing like a lot what it was like to stay at like one another's houses and to realize that like the people they loved didn't notice that they weren't in their own bodies. So that was really interesting, but the future or like present chapters, just they were not engaging, and also like just kind of random and confusing. Like it followed their love lives, but I don't even know how to explain this. You basically followed them and their multiple like love interests throughout like a few years, and then the ending was so strange, like so not satisfying. It was so weird. Like one of the things that happened in here was one of the first people that the girl Nina was dating was like this guy who was literally like a cult leader, and then that like kind of fizzled out and then never talked about again. So yeah, this was really underwhelming. It was actually the first book in like forever that I DNF'd and then I picked up again because I wanted to finish it. Like I just hate not finishing books that I've started personally, but I put it down and read 3 books in between finishing it. So yeah, I really wasn't a big fan. I was really disappointed, which sucks because I really was like super excited about this. The best part, I would say, was them as children and like exploring that that like adolescence friendship and the feelings that come with that, and the vulnerability of making friends as a child, and just the innocence of that. I really liked that part, and I was hoping that would have been explored just the same as they became adults, but it was much different. It became a lot more about their relationships with other people. So at the end of the day, I gave this 2 stars. Okay, we're down to the last books here. So the next book I read was Are Prisons Obsolete by Angela Davis. I was so excited to read this because I've been wanting to read this for a really long time. I've really been wanting to read and learn more about prison abolition, and also like to have like a text as a resource to refer to when talking about it with other people, because I love to read nonfiction and learn from it. Like it's just it's an amazing thing of life, you know? I was really excited to read this, and I think the best way to sum this up is to read to you the table of contents, because that completely explains everything that goes down in this. So the first one is prison reform or prison abolition. The second one is slavery, civil rights, and abolitionist perspectives towards prison. Chapter 3 is imprisonment and reform. Chapter 4 is how gender structures the prison system. Chapter 5 is the prison industrial complex. And chapter 6 is abolitionist alternatives. So I really liked this. This was fascinating to read. I learned so much. Even if I already knew some of the information, it's like I didn't know really detailed specifics, really detailed numbers and statistics like that. This was just such a great read. I highlighted so much of it. Like some are just whole pages highlighted. It was so great. I will say the ending of this book was really thought-provoking because it talks about this incident of like, basically she approaches the question of, you know, if we get rid of prisons, what will happen to murderers and abusers, right? And I thought it was fascinating because the way she chose to answer this was to give this example of this family whose daughter was a victim of murder, and they instead, like, she explains why the murder happened and how this family actually learned to forgive their daughter's murderer, and they literally like took him in as their own. And they say now, let me find it, they say now that they have love for him, like a son, literally. And then they say at the end, we try to explain that sometimes it pays to shut up and listen to what other people have to say, to ask why did these terrible things happen instead of simply reacting. And just that concept is so profound and unbelievable. I think to most of us, or to most people we would know, family, friends, whatever, just our communities, we are instructed to really believe in these industrial complexes like prison, and a lot of us can't understand a world without it, or a world without a sort of definitive justice like prison. It's understandable to think why people can't grasp the idea of forgiving someone that's done something so horrific, and like even reading that is hard to like wrap your head around, and it's hard to like to wonder and want to be able to be that kind of person when, you know, at least for me, I know that so many people, and to an extent rightfully, would not be able to do that. I just think it really brings out this question of redemption when it comes to prison in general, but also like people who commit these heinous crimes. It's just so like it's interesting in like a psychological and sociological perspective, and knowing that these are real people. They really forgave their daughter's murderer, and to know that's a thing, that it happened, like that is an interaction that happened, and to wrap my head around that, it's just, there's not a word for it. It's like freeing in a sense to know that there is forgiveness that strong and potent possible, but at the same time, it's so hard to even imagine being able to do that. But at the same time, it's like, while reading this, it's understandable to think, okay, well, maybe people who do bad things are sometimes redeemable. Like, sometimes it's not all that there is. I just think it's something that is super interesting and that we should definitely explore, just considering in our psyche, like, you know, the concept of forgiveness. So yeah, this was amazing. It was really good. I do wish, because it was so short, that it had even more information. So for that, I gave it 4 stars, but I still really enjoyed this and thought it was such a good read and so worth reading. I'm just so glad I have this now. Okay, and the last 2 things I read this month were these 2 comics called Rain, and I read the first 2 issues. This comic was really interesting. It was also kind of sad. It follows these people who, they're in a relationship, they love each other, they're moving in together, and then once they're moving in together, her girlfriend is stuck in the rain. Her girlfriend and her girlfriend's mother get stuck in the rain while they're moving stuff to and from, right? Except it's not normal rain, it's raining nails, right? So it's literally raining nails, and they die in the first issue. That's the whole first issue. And then in the second issue, it's kind of just like the girlfriend trying and going to tell her girlfriend's father what had happened and all of that, and it was pretty intense. It was pretty upsetting, not gonna lie, especially because they like built it up so much to like show how much they cared and loved about each other, so that was great. But I did enjoy like the storytelling of it all. I thought it was definitely a unique concept, and I think it's fun when authors just kind of throw in bits of fantasy that make no sense in a world that's supposed to be like ours. And I really loved the art style of this. It's beautiful. So yeah, I ended up giving both of these 4 stars. And that is all that I read the last 2 months. Please let me know if you've read any of these books, what you think about what I think. But yeah, that is it. Let me know what your favorite thing you read this month was too. I think mine probably was The Lila Green Doesn't Care. So let me know. I would love to hear from you guys and chat with you guys, but that is all for today from me. So I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys.